You're next. That's what the thumbnail says, and I want you to actually think about that for a second. Four of the most dangerous, most intelligent, most terrifying killers in television history. Dexter Morgan, Hannibal Lecter, Joe Goldberg, Paul Spector. One of them has decided you're the target. You don't know which one, you don't know when, you don't know how. The question is, which one gives you any chance of surviving? Today, we're breaking down exactly how each of these four kills, thinks, and operates, and by the end of this video, you'll know which one you could theoretically escape, and which one means it's already over. Let's start with the one who gives you the best odds. Dexter Morgan, Showtime, 8 seasons. Michael C. Hall in one of the defining performances of prestige television's golden era. On the surface, blood spatter analyst for the Miami Metro Police Department. Mild-mannered, helpful, a little awkward in social situations. A good coworker, the kind of guy who brings donuts to the office. Underneath, a serial killer operating by a strict moral code. His adoptive father, Harry, a detective who recognized what Dexter was becoming, gave him rules. The Code of Harry. Don't kill innocents, don't get caught. Channel the urge. Dexter is TV's most likable killer, and that likability is exactly why he's number 4 on our danger list. Dexter is a methodical, forensic, extraordinarily prepared predator. He doesn't act on impulse. He researches, he surveils, he builds a case on you before he ever makes a move. Which, ironically, is the same thing the police do. His process is precise. Identify target, confirm guilt, surveil extensively. Incapacitate with M99, a powerful animal tranquilizer. Wrap you in plastic on a kill table. And that's where the conversation happens. That's where Dexter always talks to his victims before the kill. He wants acknowledgement. He wants them to know why. And here's the thing about Dexter's methodology that actually works in your favor. He has rules, real ones. He genuinely will not kill an innocent person. The code isn't just strategy, it's identity. Harry built it into him like an operating system. Violating it causes him genuine psychological distress. So, if you've never committed a serious crime, congratulations, you are almost certainly not on Dexter's radar.
Against Dexter, you actually have a fighting chance. Here's why. First, Dexter makes mistakes constantly. The entire show is essentially 8 seasons of Dexter nearly getting caught because he gets emotionally involved, acts impulsively, or trusts the wrong person. He is brilliant at the forensic side of killing. He is significantly less brilliant at the human side of not getting caught. Second, he telegraphs his intentions. If Dexter has decided you're a target, he spends significant time watching you first. Which means if you're paying attention, if something feels slightly off, if you notice someone in your periphery a few too many times, you might actually clock it. Third, and most importantly, his code is exploitable. If you can convince Dexter you're not what he thinks you are, he will stop. He has stopped multiple times throughout the show. He is not a machine. He is a man with a conscience that he's been taught to suppress, and consciences have a way of reasserting themselves. Dexter is dangerous, extremely dangerous, but he is the killer on this list who gives you the most variables to work with. He has weaknesses, he has hesitations, he has a code that constrains him. Of the 4 people on this thumbnail, Dexter is the one you want coming after you. That is not a compliment to you, that is just how bad the other 3 are.
Joe Goldberg, Netflix, Penn Badgley. 4 seasons of one of the most quietly terrifying character studies on streaming television. Joe runs a bookstore. He's well-read, thoughtful, emotionally intelligent. He remembers what you said 3 weeks ago. He asks the right questions. He looks at you like you're the most interesting person in the room. And then he decides he loves you. And that's when the nightmare begins. Joe is not a traditional serial killer in the Dexter or Hannibal sense. He doesn't have a ritual, he doesn't have a code, he doesn't have an aesthetic. What Joe has is an obsession, and a terrifying ability to make that obsession look exactly like love.
Joe's hunting method is the most modern on this list, and in some ways, the most frightening, because it's completely invisible until it's too late. He starts with observation. He finds you online first. Social media, public profiles, anything you've made accessible. And you've made a lot accessible. We all have. He learns your schedule, your habits, your relationships, your vulnerabilities, all before he said a single word to you. Then he engineers a meeting, something that feels completely organic, a chance encounter, a shared interest. He's done his research, so he knows exactly what to say to make you feel seen. And feeling seen, really seen, is one of the most powerful human experiences. He weaponizes it. What makes Joe uniquely dangerous is that his violence is not his primary tool. His primary tool is intimacy. He gets close to you. He makes you trust him. He makes you love him. And by the time you see what he actually is, if you ever do, you're already inside the cage. The glass cage in his bookstore basement is not a metaphor. Several people end up in it. Against Joe, your survival depends entirely on one thing: how visible you are online. Joe cannot hunt what he cannot research. His entire method depends on information asymmetry. He knows everything about you before you know he exists. If you have a minimal digital footprint, if you don't broadcast your location and schedule on social media, if your life is not an open book, you significantly reduce his ability to target you effectively. But here's what makes Joe more dangerous than Dexter in one specific way. Joe doesn't need you to be guilty of anything. Dexter needs justification. Joe just needs to decide he loves you, and you have no control over that. Your best defense against Joe is also the simplest. Trust your instincts. Joe is charming, but he's also obsessive, and obsession has tells. If someone seems to know too much about you too quickly, if coincidences keep stacking up, if something about the connection feels slightly too perfect, pay attention to that feeling. Joe is survivable, but surviving him requires recognizing him early, and he has spent a very long time learning how not to be recognized early.
Paul Spector, BBC, The Fall, 3 seasons. Jamie Dornan in a performance that should have made him one of the most talked about actors of his generation, and didn't, mostly because not enough people watched the show. Spector is a bereavement counselor in Belfast. He's a husband, a father of 2 young children. He's athletic, attractive, calm. He coaches climbing. He sits with grieving people and helps them process their loss with what appears to be genuine compassion. And at night, he hunts successful, independent women in their homes. He stalks them for weeks. He learns everything about them. And then he takes complete control of their final moments, with a methodical, almost ceremonial precision that reflects not chaos, but total mastery. Paul Spector is the least known character on this list. He is also, in my opinion, the second most dangerous.
Spector's hunting method is the most patient on this list. He doesn't rush. He doesn't improvise. He selects targets with specific criteria. Successful women who live alone, who have ordered, independent lives. And then he enters their world so quietly that they never know he was there, until the moment he decides they should. He researches his targets obsessively. He draws them detailed, intimate portraits from surveillance. He learns their routines down to the minute. He enters their homes before the attack, sometimes days or weeks before, to understand the space, to leave no variables uncontrolled. What is most disturbing about Spector, what separates him from the others, is that his violence is not about anger or hunger or even obsession in the Joe Goldberg sense. It's about control, absolute control, over life, over death, over the narrative. He once said that he lives at a level of intensity unknown to ordinary people, that the moment of complete possession over another person's existence is something the rest of the world will never understand. He doesn't say this with rage. He says it with the calm certainty of someone stating a fact about themselves that they have fully accepted. That calm is the most frightening thing about him. Rage can be anticipated. Calm cannot. Against Paul Spector, your survival odds are low, very low. And here's why. Spector doesn't make the mistakes that Dexter makes. He doesn't get emotionally compromised the way Joe does. He is operating with professional-level discipline applied to something that has nothing to do with his profession. His one exploitable weakness, and it took Stella Gibson 3 seasons to find it, is his past. Spector is a product of severe institutional trauma, a father imprisoned for murder, a mother who took her own life when he was a child, years in care homes where terrible things happened. The architecture of his violence is built on that foundation. Gibson's strategy was never to outrun him physically or outsmart him tactically. It was to make him confront his own origin story, to make him see himself as a product of what was done to him, rather than as the Nietzschean Ubermensch he believed himself to be. If you somehow found yourself face-to-face with Paul Spector, and that scenario is deeply unlikely because he chooses his targets so carefully, your only real play is psychological. Make yourself a person to him, not a subject. Engage his counselor side. Make him talk about grief. It's a long shot, but it's the shot you have.
And here we are. Hannibal Lecter, NBC, Mads Mikkelsen. In what I will argue until my last breath is the greatest villain performance in television history. Dr. Hannibal Lecter is a forensic psychiatrist and consultant to the FBI. He is cultured beyond description, fluent in multiple languages, a concert-level harpsichordist, an architect-trained designer of his own living spaces, a chef of extraordinary ability. His dinner parties are legendary. His patients adore him. He is also the apex predator of this entire list. Not by a small margin, by a distance so vast that comparing the others to him feels almost unfair. Hannibal does not hunt the way the others hunt. Hunting implies effort, implies searching, implies the possibility that the prey might escape. Hannibal curates. He identifies people he finds, and this is the word the show uses deliberately, rude. People who waste their potential, who are discourteous, who are aesthetically or intellectually offensive to his sensibilities. And then he removes them from the world, the way a gardener removes weeds. Not with anger, with the calm satisfaction of improving the landscape. But what makes Hannibal uniquely terrifying, what separates him from every other killer on this list, and arguably in all of television, is his relationship with Will Graham. Because Hannibal doesn't just want to kill you, he wants to know you first, deeply, completely. He wants to understand the precise architecture of your mind, to see what you're capable of, to push you toward your own darkness and watch what emerges. He is a psychiatrist who uses his sessions not to heal patients, but to map them, to find their pressure points, to understand what would break them and what would transform them. His violence, when it comes, is almost secondary to the years of psychological engagement that preceded. One question was asked over 3 seasons. What happens to a good man when the most intelligent, most perceptive, most compelling person he has ever met turns out to be a monster who is genuinely fascinated by him? Will Graham's tragedy is not that Hannibal tried to destroy him, it's that Hannibal tried to complete him. And it almost worked.
Against Hannibal Lecter, you do not survive. I want to be completely honest with you about this. It is not a question of physical ability, tactical preparation, or psychological resilience. It is a question of information. Hannibal always knows more about you than you know about him. Always. By the time you are aware that Hannibal Lecter is a problem in your life, he has been studying you for months. He knows your patterns, your vulnerabilities, your relationships, your breaking points. He probably knows things about you that you don't know about yourself, because he is a psychiatrist of genius-level ability who has been paying very close attention. Jack Crawford, the FBI's head of behavioral sciences, a man of enormous professional experience and genuine intelligence, worked alongside Hannibal for years without suspecting him. Will Graham, an empathy-based profiler with a literally unique neurological ability to inhabit the minds of killers, was manipulated by Hannibal across 3 seasons, despite knowing, on some level, what Hannibal was. If those two men, with every professional and psychological advantage available to them, could not get ahead of Hannibal, what chance does anyone else have? None. Here is the only consolation I can offer. If Hannibal decides you are interesting enough to engage with rather than simply consume, you might get some time. He extends courtesy to people he finds genuinely compelling. He has a code of aesthetics that he adheres to with absolute consistency. Rudeness offends him more than almost anything. Be curious, be culturally aware, be genuinely interesting. It won't save you, but it might buy you a remarkable dinner first. And given that Hannibal is cooking it, that dinner will genuinely be the best meal of your life.
So, the ranking. In terms of your survival odds, from best to worst. Number 4, most survivable, Dexter Morgan. He has a code, he has weaknesses, he makes mistakes, and most importantly, he needs a reason to come after you. Don't give him one. Number 3, Joe Goldberg. Survivable if you see him early. Your digital footprint is your biggest vulnerability. And trust your instincts, they exist for a reason. Number 2, Paul Spector. Patient, disciplined, and operating without the emotional complications that slow the others down. Your only play is psychological. Use it. Number 1, least survivable, Hannibal Lecter. Not because he is the most violent, because he is the most intelligent. Because by the time you understand the situation has already ended. You're next. The question was never really which one you'd survive. The question was which one gives you the longest to figure out you're in trouble. These 4 characters represent something television does better than almost any other medium. The complex, uncomfortable, deeply human portrait of people who do terrible things and remain somehow compelling to watch. Dexter made us root for a killer by giving him a conscience. Joe made us fall for a stalker by giving him vulnerability. Spector made us understand a monster by showing us what made him one. And Hannibal made us love a cannibal by making him the most alive person in every room he entered. That's the real question this video is asking. Not just who you'd survive, but why you were drawn to all 4 of them in the first place. Subscribe if this kind of conversation is what you're here for. Drop your answer in the comments. Which one did you pick? Which one do you think is genuinely the most dangerous? And if I got the ranking wrong, tell me exactly why. See you in the next one.